So,
But why do you think that's...
so emotional for me?
Yes.
I don't know. I think because it seems like it's something that I feel like I want it. Authenticity, and I think,
What do you want about authenticity?
I think that there's a relaxed kind of exchange that happens between people when there's no pretense. And it seems like to me those are like the most moving, most meaningful, most important moments in life.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but why?
No, yeah, it's funny. I mean, it feels like in a silly way, it's like that's where love is. Like that's where like I guess it's the existential thing. Like it feels like two souls can like come together without any sort of barrier or boundary. And somehow there's completion or not aloneness or a transcendence in some way that feels like it's the root of my motivation in a lot of all the things that I do in life. And I guess that's probably part of the reason why I have such an obsession with like art and creativity and things like that, because it feels like the sole purpose of those things is to generate that kind of an experience for people. So for me, it's like the most important thing for an artist to understand how to do is tap into authenticity and then share with the world that experience so that other people can feel that too.
You know, it's interesting. Our senses, as we improve them, we sense authenticity and creativity on subtler and subtler levels. You know, one might say, if you believe that there's an essential creativity that's within the fabric of the universe, or a type of micro uncertainty, when you get very proficient at something, you start to make distinctions that bring an individual's nature into whatever they do. You know, if you're very sensitive, for example, there was one point where I did a certain type of what you might call an athletic pursuit. You know, people have a very unique way of doing it. It's no matter what level they are, there's a personality that comes through. Someone who sings opera, there's something, even if two voices sound identical, the phrasing, whatever, when you become very sensitive to those things, you find this individualism pops through. They can't hide it. Even if they try to be inauthentic, they are individual in their inauthenticity.
Right.
It's a fingerprint. You know, that fingerprint that shows that there's another soul to us, that the individual exists. So a lot of times when we might not see creativity in something, it's because we haven't developed the distinctions. But with respect to art and an artist, the thing that's wonderful about art, especially what I would call potent art, is there's expression and impression. And with potent art, we get an impression of something. It impresses us in a type of way that indicates a human was there, or something intelligent, something not scientific was there. And it's not to say that scientific things can't be awesome, but what you might say true beauty, or what you might call authentic beauty, unencumbered by structure. And authenticity has a type of structure to it, or I should say a lack thereof, whereas inauthenticity is a structure. Inauthenticity is a type of blocking. It's a type of calculated or structured block. And the essence of authenticity is what you might call pure naturalness. And although naturalness is sort of enrobed in structure often, when you get to something that's authentic, you experience this type of creativity, this soul. And a soul, it's not necessarily the soul of the human, it's a soul of a living thing, you know. So you can have, you know, a lawn that is manicured a certain way and very, very precise, or you could have wildflowers. And although wildflowers aren't as even and cut and maybe even functional, sometimes there's something just incredible about the naturalness of it. Naturalness and authenticity have this parallel. But you don't talk about flowers so much being authentic. Talk about humans being authentic. And the authentic human is a natural human, being natural in what they're doing.
Right. Congruent.
And of course there are things, there's people who are naturally inauthentic, but that's a different sort of a thing. So here we see art, and we have the expression, which is when a human either expresses through gesture or some sort of communication or literally some sort of material transformation, what we call art. And the impression is what we get from our senses and how we interpret it and interpret the world around us. I have a certain impression of this table. Besides the impression of its color and its age and a bunch of other intellectualizations, I also have very metaphysical impressions, things that I am not sure of. Like, for example, exactly how hard would I have to throw a ball to hit the edge of the table? How much energy would I have to actually expend to reach my arm across? That's an unknown, but by using my senses and feeling this table, I can even maybe guess what its weight would be like. Might be very surprised. But we do a lot of guesstimation on the world through our impressions of the world. And that's very important, because when I have an impression of something that's art, it allows me to project a type of creativity, a type of authenticity of the person that created that art. That doesn't, or some aspect of human creativity through the art. So if I look at a sculpture or a picture, there is, okay, wow, that's a nice sculpture. Wow, it's really done well, etc. But it has more than that. It has the distinct feelings that human hands did this. And if I look at a sculpture, even a sculpture that's very, very perfected, unless it is absolutely mechanical, I start to feel like I could imagine myself almost sculpturing it. I sort of imagine the hands doing it. I imagine maybe what that felt like to make that. And as I start to get these impressions from the art, I start to believe I understand the artist's expression of something that transcends our science. Sometimes it's totally off. Sometimes what we get as an impression is very different than what the artist intended as an expression, or maybe even what other people get as an impression of the same thing. But the impression expression aspect of existence is the type of communication that goes beyond science. Our communication that is data information based is very measurable and scientific. But when we start to use expression and impression, we summon to our aid all of the different things that we can use to try to get across a message very deeply to you. So if I want to express anger, one way of saying is, I am angry. Another way is to rile my body into an angered state and do 100,000 little things that indicate anger. And a lot of them you get. I don't realize I'm doing them. You don't realize you're getting them. But the impression wells within you. Wow, he's angry. Sometimes we can't even put our finger on it. And it is the most complex constellation. Now, of course, you can do that and not do as much of a constellation. How much there's an initial constellation of anger, and that humans in general have a type of constellation that we identify as anger. And then how they rally their body around that has to do with an expression of the self. So it's as if these very fundamental human things that we do are the foundation of not only the expression of anger, but that individual's anger, and actually hint at the nature of that individual's soul. Does that make sense? So authenticity is congruence of expression.